Why don't we liberate these United States? We're the ones who need it worst. Let the rest of the world help us for change.
Thank you. Wow. All right, Scottsdale. It's good to be in Scottsdale. It's good to be in the great state of Arizona. And in just 3 short days, we are going to return the White House back to the American people. We're going to make Donald J. Trump the next president of the United States. Now, I want to thank Don, of course, for that incredible start. I always hate following Donald Trump Jr., but I can't be too pissed off because I did ask him to speak first. So it's kind of my fault. I got to follow my friend Don. But look, Don, the thing about not just the president, but the family has sacrificed so much in the name of service to this country. And, you know, I think it's a great credit to the United States of America. It's a great credit to the Republican Party, and it's a great credit to all of us that Don is here fighting to take back the country and fighting to give the American people a president that is actually fit to lead this great country. I know we have the great Senate candidate, Carrie Lake. Carrie, where are you? I think Carrie may have had to step out, but Carrie, thank you so much for your leadership and for doing everything that you're doing. Let's go get Carrie Lake over the finish line, please, Arizona. We can't do this alone. We can't solve every problem, of course, but we can't even govern effectively unless we've got the right allies in Washington, D.C. Right now, you guys have a far-left radical running, pretending to be a moderate, Ruben Gallego, and on the other side, you've got somebody who's actually going to fight for the people of Arizona. Let's send a fighter for the people of Arizona, the United States Senate. We're thrilled to be joined by Gina Swaby. Gina, thank you so much for being here and for your leadership. Good to see you. We've also got Arizona Senate candidate Karine Warner. Karine, where are you? Say hello. Thank you, Karine. And then finally, we've got Arizona State House Representative Steve Montenegro. Where are you, Steve? Thank you for your leadership, man. God bless you. Now, I was talking backstage with Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk told me, love Charlie, you know, he left just a few minutes ago, and he told me he's got 3 more events just in this area of the state of Arizona. And here's what he told me, that in just this area, we've got 400,000 unreturned absentee ballots from Republicans. And here's what I'm asking you to do over the next 3 days is go and chase those 400,000 ballots. If you know somebody who's got a ballot, tell them to drop it off or get it in the mail. We've got to bank as many, sorry, not the mail, not the mail. Okay, drop them off. That's right. Do not send them in the mail. Drop them off. Thank you. We'll drop them off, or, of course, on November the 5th is actually Election Day, so get out there and vote for Donald J. Trump, for Carrie Lake, and for all of our great candidates. But we've got, think about this, we're in a very, very good spot in Arizona, but I don't want us to get lazy, and I don't want us to rest on our laurels here, because right now, we've got a big, big advantage in the state of Arizona. But here's the question. Are we going to work our tails off over the next 3 days to build on that advantage, to bank as many votes as possible, and to make this thing too big to rig? That is the goal over the next 3 days. Because think about this, the stakes of this thing could not be higher. Arizona knows it better than almost any state in the union. There are 453,000 illegal immigrants in this state because Kamala Harris refuses to do her job. In the United States of America, there are 425,000 criminal illegal aliens, people who have committed murders, people who have committed assaults, people who have gone after our fellow citizens. And I know we've got some United States Marines in the room, right? Great. We want to thank everybody, regardless of their branch of service, but the number of criminal migrants we have in this country, thanks to Kamala Harris's failed border policies, is more than twice the size of the United States Marine Corps. Now, Kamala Harris has rolled out the red carpet to every illegal alien. She's offered to give them free health care benefits. She's promised them to give them Social Security and Medicare, which would bankrupt those programs. Meanwhile, our guy is saying to the illegal aliens in this country, especially the criminal migrants, pack your bags, because in 3 months you're going back home. The cost of this border crisis to the state of Arizona is unbelievable. $1.4 billion that this state spends every single year to care for illegal immigration. What are we doing to the veterans? What are we doing for the veterans who are sleeping under park benches and sleeping all over our country, homeless, when we're spending $1.4 billion to look after people who don't have the legal right to be here? That's what Kamala Harris's policies are doing to this country. What about the fentanyl? The Mexican drug cartels are bringing in by the bushel. I was raised by somebody who struggled with addiction. And I'm proud of my mom. She's been clean and sober for 10 years, my friends, and that's an incredible grace that we've been given. But what happens to second chances when you allow the drug cartels to bring in fentanyl by the ton, which could kill every man, woman, and child in the United States of America? How many of our citizens, how many of our families have been deprived of that second chance with their loved one because Kamala Harris would rather invite the Mexican drug cartels into our country than enforce the law against them? And here's my solemn promise, is that when Donald J. Trump is the president of the United States, we're going to go to war against the Mexican drug cartels, get that poison the hell out of our country, and return basic sanity to the people of Arizona. It's not just the fentanyl, it's the kids who are not getting a good education, because we've got thousands of people in Arizona schools, and a lot of them, let's be honest, are good people. I don't blame them. I blame Kamala Harris for letting the illegal immigration problem fester. But what does it do to the education of an American child when you drop thousands of kids into their school district who don't speak English? What does it do to our healthcare system here in Arizona when you let in hundreds of thousands of people who don't have the right to be here? We can be compassionate, my friends, and we ought to be compassionate, but the compassion for the American president has to start with the American people and the people who have the legal right to be here. Now, one of the biggest problems that comes from illegal immigration, and Kamala Harris doesn't like to talk about it, and neither, of course, does the corporate media who defends her at every step of the way, it is about the effect on housing prices. I really believe that we ought to be fighting for the American dream of homeownership, especially for our young people in the state of Arizona. Think about this. 30, 40 years ago, I hear young people tell me this all the time, that 30 and 40 years ago, you could work a job, you could play by the rules, and you could afford to buy a home. And a lot of our young people feel like they're working hard, they're playing by the rules, but that American dream of homeownership is unattainable. Now, we got to do a lot to fix that. We've got to build more houses, first of all, which means stopping Kamala Harris's ridiculous regulations. We got to lower the cost of energy to make it easier to build houses. That means drill, baby, drill, and stop the war on American energy. But let's be honest, it don't matter how many homes we build, if we have a president like Kamala Harris who gives American homes to illegal aliens instead of American citizens, we are never going to make the American dream of homeownership affordable. So yes, under Donald Trump's leadership, we're going to build more homes. Yes, under Donald Trump's leadership, we are going to make mortgage interest rates more affordable, but most importantly, we are going to fight to ensure that American homes go to American citizens, and that is how we're going to make American home ownership affordable again. And that brings me, of course, when we talk about this affordability crisis, it's not just homes, it's groceries, it's utilities, it's credit card delinquency rates. In the state, in this country right now, have just gone north of 9%. You know what that means? That means 1 in 10 of our fellow citizens can't afford to pay the bills. 1 in about 11 auto loan repayments are in delinquency right now, which means that a lot of our fellow citizens can't afford to make their car payment. Donald Trump is going to usher in a golden age of peace and prosperity by fighting for some common sense economic principles that make the American dream. For all of you and all of our fellow citizens who we love, we're going to make the American dream affordable again. And that but it's not going to happen. You know, we've got the best country in the world. We've got the best people. We've got the most incredible natural resources. But we're not going to make the American dream more affordable again by doing the same things that made it unaffordable in the first place. And that is what Kamala Harris is offering all of you. It's what she's offering the state of Arizona, is 4 more years of exactly the same policies that brought us to this situation in the first place. A vote for Kamala is a vote for 4 more years of sky-high inflation. It's a vote for 4 more years of unaffordable groceries and unaffordable housing. It's a vote for 4 more years of a wide-open southern border. It's a vote for 4 more years of the fentanyl flooding into our country. And I think the people of Arizona, in 3 days, we're going to send a message. We do not want 4 more years of Kamala Harris's broken policies. Our message to Kamala Harris is, you're fired. Go back to San Francisco, where you belong. We want prosperity for the American people. Now, I will say, you know, it's an act of bipartisanship here. I know we have a lot of praying people in this audience, and I am too. And you know, one of the things that we've got to do for Americans of faith, whether you're Christian, Jewish, anything, is we've got to make religious liberty great again in this country. We've got to give people the right to practice their faith as they see fit. But if you are the praying type, maybe spare a prayer for Governor Tim Walz, because I think he's got the toughest job in American politics. I really do. If you think about this, Governor Tim Walz, you wouldn't expect me to feel bad for him because he goes around the country lying about me and lying about President Trump. But let's be honest, he's got to lie about us because he doesn't have anything else to talk about. Because Governor Tim Walz, he can't say that Kamala Harris did anything to lower the price of groceries because, of course, under her policies, the price of groceries got way more expensive. He can't say that Kamala Harris did anything to close down the border because, of course, for 4 years she did everything that she could to open the border. And the biggest challenge of all is that Tim Walz has got to pretend that Kamala Harris is competent enough to be the President of the United States. That is a tough job. Now, I know that a lot of you have got tough jobs, but you've never had a day at work so bad where you've had to convince the American people that Kamala Harris is fit to be the President of the United States. That is tough, tough work. You know, I saw Tim Walz's plane this morning in Las Vegas, Nevada, when we were flying from there to here. And I just thought to myself, man, he's got a tough job. He's got to go, and I guess he's in Arizona, but somewhere else. He's not in the Phoenix area. I believe he's somewhere else. And I just thought to myself, you know, I've got the easiest job in American politics. I get to go around and talk about the fact that when Donald J. Trump was president, inflation was at 1.5%, and our citizens could afford groceries. It's pretty good. I get to talk about the fact that when Donald J. Trump was president, take-home pay was rising faster than it had in 40 years in the United States of America. People were making more money and keeping more money. I get to talk about the fact that Donald Trump put in the biggest tax cut for working Americans that we'd seen in this country in 40 years, and of course the economy grew afterwards. And I got to talk about the fact, and I get to talk about the fact, that when Donald Trump was president, we created millions of high-paying, high-quality American jobs, and we did it in the private sector where most American prosperity actually lives. Now, here's the thing. Governor Walz's Governor Walz's job got a little harder because it turns out yesterday that while Kamala Harris has been going around the country bragging about how good the economy is, it turns out that the American economy last month lost 28,000 private sector jobs. The American economy last month lost 46,000 American manufacturing jobs. Now, it's interesting, though. If you read the jobs report, just the top line, it says the American economy gained 12,000 jobs. You know what that means? All government. We created more government jobs than we did lose private sector jobs. And that is, in some ways, the Kamala Harris economy in a nutshell. You're paying higher taxes. You're paying higher grocery prices. You're getting worse jobs with lower wages. But the government bureaucrats who work for Kamala Harris, they're doing just fine. Well, when Donald J. Trump is president, that is going to change. We're going to fire some bureaucrats and make sure we hire American workers at good wages. You know, I will say one thing nice about Kamala Harris. You'd be surprised. Look, I said something nice about Tim Walz. I asked you to pray for him. And here I am. I'm going to say about Kamala Harris that every time she gives an interview, we gain about 100,000 votes. And I will say that for her. I called the president yesterday. I said, sir, here's our strategy for the last 3 days. You and I, let's just go play golf and let Kamala Harris go out there doing interviews, and we'll win in a landslide. But unfortunately, Kamala Harris runs from the American media just as much as she runs from her own policies. So unfortunately, she's not going to help us out. But a couple weeks ago, she did us a big favor because she reminded the American people of the lie at the heart of her campaign. Remember, this is a person who's the sitting vice president, and she runs around the country pretending that she has nothing to do with the policies of the administration where she is the vice president. You'd almost believe that she's never met Joe Biden, even though she is his vice president. She's bragged about his policies for years, and she only changed her tune about a few months ago when she became the Democrat nominee for president. Now, here's the thing about Kamala. When she's got a teleprompter in front of her, she'll make all these promises, and she'll give you all these slogans, and she'll talk a big game about all the things that she wants to do. But notice, she never talks about what she has done because the actual record is a failure. But every now and then, Kamala Harris will commit a gaffe. And you know what a Kamala Harris gaffe is? It's when she accidentally tells the truth. And it happens at some of these interviews where, you know, she did an interview with The View a couple weeks ago. And I wouldn't recommend watching Kamala Harris on The View. You lose about 20 IQ points, and we need you guys as sharp as you can be for the next 3 days. Wait, after the election, you can watch Kamala Harris on The View. But they ask her the question, well, what would you have done differently over the last 4 years? And Kamala Harris says, nothing comes to mind. Now, that could be the slogan of the Harris-Walz campaign, nothing comes to mind, but But think about this, that she said in plain English for everybody to hear that she wouldn't have done anything differently over the last 4 years. That means that if you vote for Kamala Harris, you're going to get more of the same. More of the same open border, more of the same policies that drive up the cost of groceries, gas, and everything else. More of the same failed leadership, more of the same chaos all over the world, and more of the same failed leadership in the Oval Office. But we've got an opportunity to take this country, to take the state of Arizona in a new direction. We've got an opportunity to vote for tax cuts for working families. We've got an opportunity to secure that southern border. We've got an opportunity to give us a president in the White House who can actually do the job. We've got an opportunity in 3 days to make Donald J. Trump the next president of the United States, and that's what we got to do. And you know, there's one difference that's maybe bigger than all the other differences. There's, of course, a lot of policy differences between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. There are a lot of things that we can criticize her on, and we do. But one thing that I think has really come out over the last few days is that while Donald Trump is very good at counterpunching, and while Donald Trump is very good at picking apart the record of Kamala Harris has done something else. She's not been attacking just President Trump or just me. She's been attacking her fellow citizens for daring to think that she has done a bad job. And I know that the media lies about this. They say that, you know, they'll say that, well, the Kamala Harris campaign is the campaign of joy. Well, I think we have a hell of a lot more joy on our side right now, don't you? We're having a lot more fun than they do. But there's no joy when Kamala Harris's boss calls half of America garbage for thinking that they're doing a bad job. There's no joy when Kamala Harris calls the opposition fascists and Nazis for daring to think that Kamala Harris ought to actually do her job rather than just talking about doing her job. You know, when Tim Walz talks about thousands and thousands of patriots gathered in Madison Square Garden for a celebration of this country that all of us love, when he calls those people fascists and he compares it to a Nazi rally, even though there were people in that rally, and I know them, who were actually victims of the Holocaust and survived to tell the tale about it, what he's really saying is that the American people are bad people for disagreeing with Tim Walz and Kamala Harris. And that's, I think, something that we've really got to change in this country. Look, I am obviously standing here asking to be your next vice president. I am a proud Republican because I think Republicans got the best ideas. But we got a lot of Democrats and a lot of independents who are part of this movement. We got Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. We've also got, on the Republican side, Brian Kemp and Nikki Haley. You're welcome. You're welcome in this big tent so long as you believe in common sense, but we have got to stop electing politicians who call half of the country garbage, who call half the country Nazis, who call half the country fascists. Because if you go down that pathway, what you're doing is fundamentally you're telling the American people that they're not allowed to criticize their own government. Well, Kamala Harris, I've got news for you. The mom who's worried about putting food on the table because grocery prices are too high, she's not garbage. She's a patriot for doing her job as a citizen and as a mother. The father I met a few weeks ago who's pissed off that the Mexican drug cartels killed his son, he is not garbage for thinking that you should do a better job going against those Mexican drug cartels. The grandmother I met who's worried about raising her grandchildren in a neighborhood with basic peace and basic security, she's not garbage for thinking that you should back the blue instead of attacking American law enforcement. So our message to Kamala Harris is very simple. We are not bad people for loving this country enough to think that Kamala Harris ought to do a better job. Nobody is a bad person for criticizing their own government. In fact, that is everybody's right as an American citizen. And Kamala Harris, while it is disgraceful to call half the country garbage, in 3 days this country is going to take out the trash in Washington, D.C. So, I'll leave you with one final thought, my friends, one final thought here, and it's this. Like I said, we got to get out there and chase those ballots, encourage those 400,000 to drop them off. Do not mail them in. Drop those 400,000 ballots off. And, of course, if you don't make it before November the 5th, get out there and vote on November the 5th. Because the stakes in this election, it's so much bigger than red team versus blue team. It's so much bigger than just beating Kamala Harris. As much as it's going to be fun to beat Kamala Harris and the Democrats, trust me, I'm going to enjoy it more than any of you will even. Here's what's at stake. What's at stake is that our citizens are struggling. We've got the greatest country in the world. We've got the best natural resources, the most beautiful people, the most beautiful landscapes, and I believe the most talented human beings anywhere in the world, right here in the United States of America. I really do believe that with better leadership, we are on the cusp of a golden age of American prosperity. But we've got to do a better job. And the way to do a better job is to fix what I believe is the only thing that's broken about the United States of America, and that's Kamala Harris's failed leadership in Washington, D.C. So as you're working over the next few days, and as we're doing everything that we can to get people to the polls, I want you to remember just a few of the people that I've met on the campaign trail over the last few months. I met a woman who is a retiree, and for 40 years, she and her husband have done steak night every Friday, but last year, under Kamala Harris's policies, because groceries got too expensive, she stopped doing steak night. I met a mother who's mourning a teenager who took something at a party under peer pressure, something a lot of teenagers do, but instead of her son paying with that mistake with a lecture or getting grounded by his mom, he paid for that mistake with his life. Because what he took under peer pressure was laced with fentanyl brought in by the Mexican drug cartels. I've met so many people who can't afford groceries. I've met young people who would love to get married and start a family, but they're worried they're never going to be able to afford to buy a home to raise that family in. Those people, our fellow Americans, they deserve to be able to have steak night on Friday. They deserve to be able to pay their utility bills. They deserve to live in safe and secure communities, and they deserve to have a president who's going to fight for them rather than call them garbage. The only way that's going to happen, my friends, is if we get out there and vote. So let's give the American people a president they deserve. Let's give the American people Donald J. Trump. God bless you all. Thank you for having me, and let's get it done. Thank you.
Hello, Pittsburgh, still Bill Wonder. Let me thank you for your time. You work a 40-hour week for a living. Just send it on down the line. This is for the one who swings the hammer, driving home the nail. For the one behind the counter, ringing up the sales. For the one who fights the fires, the one who brings the mail. For everyone who works behind the scenes. You can see them every morning in the factories and the fields, in the city streets and the quiet country towns.